So in Blender to move around, I'm using Alt as my push attack key, so you'll just see a lot of that flashing up and down. So yeah, panning around, well not panning around, to like look around is middle mouse. You can always change these in like the preferences. So yeah, middle mouse, look around, shift middle mouse to pan, and scroll to go in and out, which is basically the main ways to move and navigate in Blender. I have my selection of right click because that's just the way I got used to it. But if you have 2.8 or above, it should default to left click. And that's what most people like. But I just got used to the right click. Um, Looking around, you can, if you don't have a numpad, you can emulate basically the orthographic looks, but like 7 is to look from the top. You can also click this. Numpad is faster though. Or is it, you can also alt middle mouse it, I think. Wait, yeah, like that. I don't like that though. Looking around. Yeah, so if you don't have a numpad, you can emulate, you can emulate it in the preferences, where you can emulate uh, a numpad with like that number row. So that's looking around. Yeah. Deleting things, usually most people just delete the whole scene that you start off with because no one really uses it. So A is to select everything, and I have everything selected. X to delete, and it asks you if you want to delete it. And yeah, Shift A is to add object. So you can add everything here. A plane is a plane. They usually spawn at your 3D cursor. I don't really use my 3D cursor though, so like setting that to 0. There's a plane. Tab to go into edit mode. There's 3 different selection types. There's vertices, edges, and faces. So with vertices, uh, you would select the vertice, and you can move it around. You can turn on the tools here by pressing T, which is the toolbar. You can drag it if you'd like. Control Z is undo, which is typical for all programs. And uh, usually what I do is I press G, which is transform, so you can move it around. If you like, if you middle mouse and drag it in a specific direction, it'll automatically snap to the 3 axes. So middle mouse up, and go up and down. G middle mouse, left and right is X, and this way. Um, when you're setting these, you can also use numbers to input how much you want them to move. So like 1 doesn't really work here. Wait, no, that'd be like rotate. But rotating, you press R, you can use this handle tool. I like R because it's fast. S for scale. And those are the main ways to manipulate an object. Most people would use cubes because they're fairly simple shapes. Uh, you could use them to make a lot of things. Cylinders also useful. You can change how much, like how many subdivisions are on a cylinder when you first insert it. And only when you first insert it, you can't really change it afterward. So here, you can open this up, add cylinder to the vertice. You can see I can change it. Uh, and the radius, you don't really have to mess with the radius though. You can just kind of do it out yourself. But depth, tall it is. There's the n-gons. This is kind of okay. It's a fill cap type. You don't really touch that. Oh, it disappeared. Well, you don't really touch that. Yeah, cubes doesn't have much. It's basically just you curves are a bit complicated. Uh, Basically, you can create a path and then have an object run through the path, like one of the tools in using in CAD. Cylinders, you don't use cones or torus all that often. Icosphere is not really UV sphere. Uh, this one you'd use decently, I guess, but it's UV sphere shaped like this. Circle, you don't really use it all that often, but all these is like other stuff that I have add-ons for. Um, most people only just use you only use like the most useful are like cube and cylinder. And yeah, Shift A to go into add. Curved surfaces. I never touch surfaces. I don't really know. Metaball. Shift D to duplicate. I guess it does that. Oh, that's isn't that cool? I don't really know what to do with it. Text. Well, that's text. You can edit it. Type what you want. Grease pencil. I never touch grease pencil. I don't really know what to do with that. Armature. You use this to rig things. I don't rig, so I don't really know what to do with it. Lattice. Never touched that. Empties. Um, I don't really mess with empties. I usually mess with images because these are useful for like background or reference it over a window, and you can just pull up an image of whatever, and I'll put it in the space in your viewport. Light. This is for rendering stuff. Let me go into this. I have mine set to Eevee because uh, you you wouldn't really use cycles unless you're like really rendering. I don't render, so I don't touch cycles all that often. I just use mess with Eevee. Here it is. See the light? Wow. And on the side, there are all these options for that. I'm not going to get really into that though, because I don't know that much. Camera, that's your camera. It's also rendering. Light probe, I've never touched that. Speaker, never really touched that force field. This is like, I think this is for physics. When you do physics simulation collection instance. This is the collection over here. I really never really touched, but it basically contains everything that is in the viewport, and you can organize it in different collections if you have to. Um, let's start with, for example, let's make something fairly simple. Let me get a reference real quick. Finding an image. I'm going to do a cup because cups are easy, or fairly easy. It'll show you like one of the modifiers. Let's just take Aren't that many good pictures of you. I'll just this one decent, I guess. Okay. When you want to use an image, you'd have to save it onto your computer. Wish there was an easier way to do it, but yeah. Okay, so when you place an image, it'll go basically in the direction your viewport is looking at. So you'd want to have it set up right. So I usually use one as the front-facing view. It doesn't really matter which one you use, but I like mine set where Z is up. So one. So image. There are two image types: reference and background. Background will not appear um, when you're looking around in the 3D, but will only appear when you're in the specific viewport orientation. So typically background sets one for every one of the axes, and reference will show up in 3D when you look around. So let me pull up them. This is what I found. Some different cups here. Okay. So this is a background. You see it disappears when I'm looking, and it shows up like that, only in one of the views. Okay. Then reference. Here's a reference. You can see you can move it around. You can basically there's not that much of a difference. Basically, this just automatically has some alpha settings set to it. And if you don't know, alpha is basically the transparency channel. So you can change the opacity for the with the alpha selection, make it less visible, so you can see your model through them. I'm going to use the background because it's easier, in my opinion anyway. You can align it, and there's no specific way to align it, but you should align it with the origin in some way because it's just makes more sense. When you move things around, you want to be really precise. You press G and Shift, and then move it around. You'll see it moves a lot slower. Well, this is just normal. Okay. When I stop wanting to do something, you can I right click. Uh, so yeah, it basically cancels whatever you're trying to do at that moment. So it just snaps back where when I right click. For this, I want to use a cylinder. There are there are ways to do it, like there are different ways to model. Uh, if you want to have really high polygon count models, you could use the subsurf modifier. So modifiers are all of the. Usually, you don't really touch this or that when you're modeling. Actually, you do touch some of deform a little bit, but mostly it's generate. So there's mirror, which is fairly obvious. It mirrors from the origin. You can see this is another copy. These are all the options. You can have it be on the y-axis. That's over here. Z, which is up and down. You won't really use it for making a cup, but solidify. It's got its applications. The mostly used ones I'd say are probably Boolean, mirror, solidify, and subdivision surface. That basically subdivides everything, and it adds more detail basically. But it can be a bit janky. It doesn't like n-gons. What n-gons are polygons with more than 4 sides. Generally, you don't really want n-gons or triangles because it messes with workflow, but uh, really it doesn't matter too much. I generally like to avoid them because it's a good habit, but eh, I don't. I'll show you how to model without subdivision surface because you don't need that. Not right now. Okay, so I'm in origin. This is you can press N to open this menu here. This is where you can easily manipulate a location with numbers, which is how I like to set it up with 0. Okay. Now there are different ways to see things in Blender. You can choose them up here. Usually when you're modeling, you're only choosing probably these two and this one uh, for if you're like doing some texture work. A lot of the time you'd want to use a matte cap. There, if you click this little drop down menu, it'll bring you to studio, matte cap, and flat. Flat basically makes everything flat, so you can't see any edges. Matte caps are stands for material capture, so it basically captures material, and you can see the topology better. What topology is basically how all the vertices, edges, and faces are orientated, and good topology is how do I describe it? This basically tells you if you have good topology or not. If it's good, you'll notice that you don't have any distortions or warpings in the matte cap. All these have different purposes. You can just set one to one that you like looking at. It doesn't matter too much, but yeah, I'll just change it to the default one. Let me demonstrate something. Usually you smooth shade. Alright, I should describe what that is. Alright, smooth shading. If you go down here, in normals, there's auto smooth, smooth shade, shade smooth. It basically averages all the shading, so it looks smoother. But normal smooth shade doesn't actually account for edges, like where they're placed. So smooth shade can automatically do that for you. And you can see like all this is smooth, yet you get a nice edge at the top. And you can notice like this ugly looking dark spot in here. Different matcap, I show it better. Yeah, here. It just does that. That's what like a matcap does. You can see it better. Without it, you might not notice. See, it looks flat. Maybe for here you can see it, but generally, matcap makes that kind of stuff easier to notice. V. Oh yeah, that's not good. Okay. So you have your cylinder. You don't want too many polygons for it. I'd set mine to like, I usually use 8, 12, or 16. I don't go too above that for Roblox anyway. And for the cup, okay, I like using Z. You press Z, it brings up this menu. All these will bring you to either one of these. You can click it up here, you can press Z and then go to which one. Z is faster, so I like Z. And wireframing is wireframing. It shows you the wires. Attach, go into edit mode. You can move it around. S to scale, as I said earlier. So that scales the shape. So I'm going to start from the bottom and go to the top. Alt right click to select edge loops. Edge loops are pretty important in modeling. To create an edge loop, you can Control R, and you see this outline. You can click it, and then you see an edge loop. Yeah, you wouldn't see those lines because I was pressing Alt because that's my push to talk key. You can dissolve and deleting. You can delete the vertices. That just deletes the whole side. Though. Dissolving is it dissolves it. I don't know how to describe it. Just see for yourself. That was the wrong one. Dissolve edges, and it just dissolves it basically. Selected alt right click, and scale it down to the bottom. You generally want good references. Just hunt around the internet for some. You don't want to be too detailed. It's something that's kind of hard when you're starting off. You kind of want to add way too many edges as you go. There are many ways to actually go about doing something like this. You could start from the top, add edge loop. You can wait, that's doesn't work. Yes. Okay. Oh, that's fine. Okay, go to edge loops and you can scroll to add more edge loops. This is one way to do it. I don't really like this way, but that's one way. Scale that. There's also proportional editing. This is this button right here. You can toggle it with O, and that was P. Okay, maybe I got that wrong. Whatever. Here's all the different ways that it could you can proportionally edit. So smooth, sphere, root, inverse, square, sharp, linear, constant, random. They're all a bit complicated. Well, I don't. I usually use smooth, inverse, square, or sharp for different applications. Let me demonstrate it. So I have a scale, and you get the circle. You can scale, bring the area of effect for the proportional editing. It basically proportionately moves everything around it. The farther away it is, the less it's edited. So I can scale it up and get it like a pumpkin. I don't know what that is. I can scale it. Sharp is sharp. You can use these lines as a way to describe it. So I'll let them go away. sharp. And for square, this one's got its own purposes. I don't know, I just kind of use it sometimes. I typically don't use proportional editing all that often. You can select several things by left and by pressing B, which is like box, select everything. It only selects what you see though. That was and so you only see the front of this, so it only selects that. So if you want to select the whole top, B, go over everything, and then you can delete the vertices. The deleting vertices will also go on over here. It's not just going to delete this and stop because this vertex is selected. So for this, you want to delete faces or edges. Those also delete that edge. So that's probably not good. Okay. These down. Scale it a little bit. Something like that. Basically trace the cup, shape of the cup. I don't have it filled. Okay, here's another thing. To fill something like this, like you're missing a face, press F, and it fills it in. When you be exporting, I can get to that later. So there. You don't need too many. It may seem jagged, but in game it won't really look that jagged, especially if you smooth shades. So you don't do that right now. Shade smooth. It's auto smooth. It's already on. It might seem a little janky, but that's fine. It's just because it's low poly. You won't really notice in the game. So here's standard shading. You don't really notice any typical defects or artifacts from the shading. For this, when you are doing this, you want to make sure like you match the edge loops lined up. So when you do the handle, you want so these would line up. So later you can delete them and create. I'll show that later, but here's the shape of the cup. You want to fill it in, right? So extrude. Well, E is to extrude, and it'll go in the normal direction of it. So S scale, bring it down. Alright. Okay, you won't really see the inside all that well. You probably want to create a lip though. You don't want a sharp cut, that looks weird. And if you get this, you can always increase the angle and see that'll disappear. If the angle was way too high, let's start like shading stuff like that. You might not want that. And if you don't, there's a way to basically force itself. So it isn't smooth shaded. So Control E select, and then Control E brings up this edge menu. You want to mark sharp, and see this part is marked sharp. So these edges are now sharp. But I don't want it to be sharp. So there. For something like this, maybe this edge up at the top is a little bit too sharp. You you could bevel it. So Control B to bevel. It does that name. Okay, please stop it. No, it doesn't usually do that. But I guess they have the handle. Yeah, Control B to bevel, and you basically does this. It's similar. It's the same thing like in a CAD program. It smooths it around because it bevels it. And you can scroll to add more bevels to the one edge. Typically, you don't want too much because that's unoptimized. I feel like this is also kind of a lot of polygon. And whatever, this is probably, I'm just going to have this a bit more complicated than it would be to demonstrate. But there, inside the cup, outside the cup, no handle though. So now, earlier I said you should have these basically lined up to where the top and the bottom of the handle would meet. So here and here, this verse should go here, this here, and this here around. It don't have to be exact, it's fine if it isn't. And I don't have it perfectly set lined up, but there. Rotate, can hold Control to basically do it in 5 increments. Rotation number up over here. So I rotated it here because so we can delete the face where the cup handle would come through. It's here. So what I like to do, swapping in between selecting of edges, vertices, and faces, is pressing 1, 2, and 3. The numbers 1, 2, and 3. You can't really do this if you don't have a numpad, because if you do, the number would basically emulate the numpad. So you would move in orthographic views. But select the parts where you want these would come out and delete. You have an empty face here. And technically, this isn't perfect because the handle isn't actually that thick up there. So I'm going to add 2 loop cuts using the scroll wheel. Probably force some down so you can scale these away from each other. S and then Y. Okay, it doesn't like that. Move them apart a little bit. And I think that's better. Okay. Alright, delete the faces. Probably move these over because it's shaded, it basically reinforces these edges. So you can loop select them, and kind of move them apart, and basically relieve the edge because of the shading. Okay. Oops. And you can Alt right click to select that loop. Well, not right click, Alt select click. Extrude these out. These will be the handle. You've basically modeled these together. You can fill it F. Select this F. Move these around, scale it, get it right. Now you basically follow the path of the handle. can always check the thickness. This is a little thin, so I'm going to just made it slightly. Scale them on the y-axis, thicken it a little bit. Alright. You can always fix your problems a little later, unless it's a really bad problem. For example, like the nasty shading up here, that can just be fixed a bit later. And now these are meeting. How do you connect these two together? Well, you can delete the faces, and then select these loops, and then I don't know the exact hotkey, I kind of just forgot, but I like using space as a search. So you want to bridge edge loops. These will basically bridge these two together so they're now connected. Great tool. Scale it up. Stop doing that. I don't know why it's doing that. I think it's because I'm pressing Alt. Oh, great. That's extra. Whoops. Now, you have your cup. Except you got this terrible shading around here. You can forcibly mark sharp some of these areas to make it look better. You can add more polygon, edge loop without this whole thing. Like that, but that just adds more polygon, and it can be fairly mitigated with marking sharp. Yeah, that looks a lot better. There. Not perfect, but you wouldn't really notice it too bad in like a game. There's a cup. You want this might look a little sharp, so you can bevel it. They will create triangles here, but that's oh no, those are triangles. It might. It depends on where you bevel. Sure. Great. So this is an angon here, actually. So you see, there's more than uh, 4 edges here. There's five. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can close these up by merging. Alt M to merge. Center. It creates a triangle, but that's not the end of the world. Generally, you have to do these one at a time. It's probably, I don't know if there's actually another way. Oh, wait, yeah. There would be. It's wouldn't work all the time, though. That is the merge doubles, basically. They've changed it to merge by distance. It's like they're merged by distance. Like the problem is that it probably also merged the bevels too. Usually it's set to really small. Maybe you want to add increase it a little bit, but you already see it's already messed up this part. So you can always mess around a little bit to get the topology a little nicer. J is to connect. Something like that creates an edge in between. It's still fairly messy. Uh, this is like the complicated, annoying stuff where you just have to deal with it. It doesn't look great. I could probably have done it a different way. But too bad. And you probably didn't even need to do what I did in the first place, but there's that. You're I can spend a long time trying to fix this part up over here. Definitely other ways to do that are probably better, but oh well. What I just did there was period. Uh, Sometimes when you're like up really close, trying to move your camera around, and it becomes really like when you're trying to pan or look around, it's kind of slow. You can press 0, which basically recalibrates your camera. It centers on what you press on, what you select. Well, there's a poorly made copy. Okay. So, I have a cup. It's not perfect around here, but honestly, it's good enough. I don't want to bother. Go ahead and like mess around, experiment, and see what looks the best. as a cup. Is that enough? I don't know. The cleanest, but okay. Now, with the cup, you can save it. Save into your folder. I'm gonna when you okay, so now you've saved it. You probably should save at the beginning and save often just in case uh, exporting. So now you have your file, have your cup, and you want it to be in Roblox. And just do this because it looks nicer. Okay, cool. So you have your cup, you want to export it and bring it into Roblox. So there are two formats Roblox accepts. There's FBX and OBJ or wavefront. This is OBJ stands for object. FBX is just FBX. I think it's an Autodesk thing. Uh, so what I personally like to use FBX because it supports a lot of different things in the file itself, while Wavefront doesn't do that as much. So I personally prefer to export as FBX. Can you see the window? No, you can't. Well, in the window that would open that you would see, there are different things to include. You don't really have to touch any of it on the side, or you just want to save it. So you can export the FBX and load it up into Box. When you want to change different like color and the yeah, you can see there's an artifact there. It won't actually be visible in something like Roblox. You zoom up, you realize that it's gone. Uh, so what if you want different colored parts in your cup? Texturing? I don't really know how to texture, honestly. I'm terrible at it because I haven't tried. I like to just use the default Roblox texture. So, for example, you want the inside of the cup white colored. You can select what you want. Oh wait, a little bit. Okay, select what you want to be white. I'm going to bring it up to the lip because I feel like it. And now you want to add it into a different part. So press P. Pre is separate. P by selection, aka what you've selected. Material is when you have material set up down here. You press new material stuff. You don't want to touch it for modeling. This is just Blender inside thing. You can't export this through an FBX. So by selection or loose parts, which is like separated objects uh, in your in your object. So by selection, boom, all that is out. I don't know if Roblox has fixed this. I haven't really checked, but when like two meshes meet up right next to each other, you could like see through it, like at this edge. Uh, I haven't tested if Roblox fixed that, but if that is still a thing, you could select the edge. Just extrude, just add some substance in between those two edges. So like that. And now Roblox won't have that issue because there's just another mesh there. Or yeah, another part of the mesh there. But I'm gonna test it without that just to see if it's been fixed because I haven't checked. Okay, so you'd want to export these as two different objects or FBXs or LBJs. Roblox hasn't fixed. Yeah, then you have to do that then. Well, it's probably just a thing with its rendering. Can't do much about it without overhauling. Oh well. I'm not using a voice changer. It's I don't know. My terrible here wanted me to sound different. Ah, there. It could just be. Wait. I think I know. Is that better? I don't know. Who cares? I don't. Now you have these two things. Export space. This is what I like sometimes because this would bring up a menu and in this menu, you would have selected objects. So make sure to, on the right side, there's a menu which says include. It's all, the drop down menu is already open. You want to select these selected objects. So whatever is the selected object will get exported. So I have the inside of the cup selected. You can name it whatever. I like naming it by number because it's just more convenient. Space export selected objects cup 2. Now, let's go into Roblox. Okay. To open Roblox Studio, my computer is kind of slow, so it'll take a little bit. Roblox. I don't open Roblox Studio that often. Exporting is probably my least favorite part of doing this. I can show everyone some of my other models after this. See, like, stuff you can make. And if you want basically more information, you should just watch YouTube tutorials because they do this a lot better than me. It would be like Blender Guru is good. Watches Donut or Chair tutorial or Anvil tutorial. They're all great. I, however, am not that great. Let's do it. Oh, great. Wow, Roblox Studios opened. Let me switch my view to that in a second. It's silly. Ground, line it up, light, increase the power because the power is weak. Go over to Eevee render. Yeah, that is really bright. It's not perfect. You can see these little artifact edges because that's the limitations of Eevee. Cycles would not have that problem, but Cycles takes way longer to render. Let's just demonstrate this real quick. Cycles. Very slow. My computer is very good at doing that, and here Eevee does it pretty quick. Bring that away. Another one. Cool. And I expect, oh great, it closed, it crashed. Oh, did I render that? Well, yeah, it's just for fun. I'm not doing it seriously. I don't even have materials set for this. Okay, Ramen and Roblox. That's great. Okay, wait, as I transition. Stream I go. Okay. Explorer property. Now to insert, to easily import stuff, you would. Where is it? Game Exporter. Explorer. You want Game Explorer. Here's the word import, and it'll open a menu, and you can go through stuff. So cups. Cup 1 and cup 2. Open. Rescale too large. Reverse import painting face. Oh yeah, I forgot. Um, Always make sure your normals are facing the right direction. Select a shift N is the way to recalculate normal. That just recalculates. Boom. Here. Shift N. There. This didn't change the shading because you noticed the shading changed, so there's no issue with that. And import files, single mesh. No, you do not want that unless you do. You do not want to rescale if it's too large because I'll mess with the location data. So, reverse apply all. It's that. Now you have cup 1 and cup 2. Now they finished uploading and importing. Now you can go to Explorer, game, and then mesh it. They got a lot already in here. Jeez. Cup 1, cup 2. Drag these in. Yeah, that thing's big. I want it in there. Nice. Okay. Right click insert with location. So these two match up. Boom. Your cup. Now select the two. Uh, Group them. Scale them down. They're huge. And that's alright. These not grouped properly. Bruh. I haven't used Studio in a while. It's just updates. I don't know what they're doing. Okay. Okay. Yes, their model. This is one model now. Move it around. It's good. It's pretty big. Let's make it more cup size. Seems about right. You can see the problems here. They're a little bit visible, but it won't be all that noticeable. I'll make it bigger because it looks better. Okay, you're now in Roblox. You can select, change the color, and make it white. The outside, oh no, blue. Looks bad. Here, choose material. Let's make it glass, because glass. Maybe smooth plastic. That's smooth plastic. So, so make it smooth plastic. And you have a cup. Wow. You probably just edit the colors. I'm not into colors. It's pretty annoying, but it doesn't really matter which one you set it. Honestly, all look fine. So, I want a yellow cup, maybe beige or blue. Okay, cool. Is that it? That's it. Oh, you can see that? I have to share my. Oh, great. It's not changed. Oh, it keeps doing that. Oh, here. Yeah, you can probably see everything. Now group them. They're here in the model. Meshes one, cup two. Stuff here. Reflecting. Yeah, wow, it's shiny. It's kind of bad though, so not gonna have that much. And that's your cup.